Ben Tennyson's secret identity is exposed to the world by an online video, ending his secretive life of heroism. Public opinion on Ben is polarized. He is idolized as a superhero by kids and teens, but distrusted by adults, particularly news anchor Will Harang, who deems Ben a menace. Ben, Gwen, and Kevin decide to pay a visit to the internet conspiracy theorist who exposed Ben's identity, revealed to be a 10-year-old boy named Jimmy Jones who runs a website on alien sightings. Not recognizing one of the aliens on Jimmy's website, Ben and his team travel to Orlando, Florida, the site where the photograph was taken, to investigate. Ben's team is brought into custody by the U.S. military, where Air Force Colonel Rosum explains that the alien in question has been stealing parts from a NASA interstellar rocket called Orion. Ben confronts the alien, named by Valvin, who explains that he is trying to leave Earth after having been stranded there. Ben defeats Valvin, who reveals that he is from the Andromeda Galaxy and was kidnapped along with 4 other aliens by a monster named Aggregor. Ben and his team leave to retrieve the plumbers, but Valvin is recaptured by Aggregor. Later, Ben's classmates take his side and clap for him and the lives he's saved. Ben, Gwen, and Kevin defeat an alien rampaging through the streets of Bellwood. Through a universal translator, they learn that the alien, Galapagos, was only trying to get Ben's attention in order to seek his help. Galapagos explains that he was one of the 5 aliens from the Andromeda Galaxy captured by Aggregor, who brought him into a cell in his spaceship along with the other prisoners, Valvin, Rad, Pandor, and Andreas. The aliens manage to escape, but are divided on what action to take. Valvin, Rad, and Galapagos send a distress signal out to nearby plumbers, while Pandor and Andreas confront Aggregor. Aggregor defeats and recaptures them, subsequently killing Magister Prior Gilhill, the plumber responding to their distress call. Galapagos seemingly betrays the other aliens to Aggregor, but instead turns on Aggregor and helps them flee to a nearby spaceship, which they take to Earth and then go their separate ways. Ben sends Galapagos home via a plumber ship, but the pilot is revealed to be Aggregor in disguise, who recaptures Galapagos. Kevin takes on an underground job to open a safe for a large sum of money, only to discover that the employer is Pandor, one of the missing Andromeda aliens, who wishes to be freed from a containment suit that he has been kept in. Kevin refuses to free Pandor after his plumber's badge detects radiation in the suit. The two battle, but Kevin flees, and Pandor steals a shard of tadenite, the strongest mineral in the galaxy, from him. After Kevin informs Ben and Gwen about Pandor, Gwen insists that they help free him, but Kevin refuses on the basis of him being too dangerous. The trio find and confront Pandor, who attempts to use the tadenite to free himself, but is unsuccessful. He realizes that he needs Kevin to absorb the tadenite in order to free him. Pandor has his minions kidnap Kevin, who taunt him into liberating Pandor, revealing himself as an energy-based alien who absorbs radiation. Ben disguises as Valvin and tries to dissuade Pandor from attacking a nuclear power plant, but this only results in a fight. Ben and Kevin ultimately work together to defeat Pandor, who is arrested by the plumbers. Aggregor then attacks the plumber's ship and captures Pandor. Argit is running a con selling insurance to the Forever Knights, threatening that if they do not pay him, he will destroy their castles. Ben, Gwen, and Kevin investigate and discover that Argit has befriended Andreas, one of the missing Andromeda aliens, and manipulated him into destroying the castles. Out of fear, the Forever Knights have now become Argit's servants. Argit is confronted by Sir Dagonet, a legendary Forever Knight seeking to liberate the Knights from Argit's influence. He captures Argit, Andreas, Ben, Gwen, and Kevin, intending to execute Andreas using an energy cannon. Ben and the team free Andreas, but Dagonet turns the cannon into a bomb and flees with the Knights. On Argit's insistence, Andreas absorbs the bomb's blast, saving the others but seemingly dying in the process. Kevin punches Argit in outrage and they part ways. Later, Andreas is shown to have survived and is recaptured by Aggregor. Ben is attacked in the dead of night by Rad, the last of the Andromeda aliens, but Ben defeats him. Captured in the abandoned military base at Los Soledad, Rod reveals that Aggregor recaptured the other 4 aliens and blames Ben for it. Rod asserts that the Ultimatrix led Aggregor to the other aliens and attacks it in an attempt to deactivate it, causing an explosion and vanishing. Ben and his team are subsequently attacked by Aggregor, whom Kevin realizes is an Osmosian, the same species as Kevin's father, and thus possessing the same power to absorb energy that Kevin has. Ben transforms into a new alien form named Amphibian, an Amperi who is the same species as Rod, and is trapped in his alien form. He realizes that he and Rod are sharing their consciousness. Fleeing from Aggregor to Kevin's garage, Kevin is able to split Ben and Rod, but Rod flees as Aggregor arrives. Aggregor defeats Kevin and Gwen and nearly kills Ben, but Rod intervenes out of guilt and electrocutes Aggregor. Kevin's garage explodes and Rod is recaptured, but Ben vows to use the powers of the Andromeda aliens to rescue them. A group of plumbers ambush Aggregor in an attempt to rescue the Andromeda aliens, but are overwhelmingly defeated. The team then learns from Colonel Rosum that Aggregor has taken the aliens to Los Soledad. Professor Paradox then appears and reveals that Aggregor is using Paradox's technology to facilitate the total absorption of the aliens. Ben and his team confront Aggregor, with Kevin attempting to reason with him, insisting that energy absorption causes Osmosians to lose their sanity. Aggregor asserts that these are merely lies and absorbs the aliens into himself. The aliens disappear, and Aggregor emerges as a monstrous amalgamation of their forms. Believing that Aggregor has killed the Andromeda aliens, Ben attacks him viciously, only to learn that Aggregor's new form makes him virtually invulnerable. After Aggregor leaves Earth, Ben and his team are brought to Galvan Prime by Azimuth, who explains that Aggregor's goal is to acquire the Map of Infinity, a complete map of space-time which will lead him to a mysterious realm known as the Forge of Creation, where he can acquire unlimited power. Because of the map's importance, Professor Paradox separated it into 4 pieces and hid them throughout the universe in secure locations. Aggregor absorbed the powers of the Andromeda aliens to make him powerful enough to retrieve them. Ben, Gwen, and Kevin travel to the tidally locked planet Mictildee to retrieve the first piece of the Map of Infinity, encountering a group of Necrophrygians and entering an ancient temple. Inside the temple, the trio evade a series of traps but end up at the mercy of Aggregor, who takes the piece of the Map of Infinity and leaves. Ben and the others barely escape, resolving to prevent Aggregor from getting any of the other pieces. Ben, Gwen, and Kevin are summoned to the aquatic planet Piscis by Magister Pyle, a plumber who reports that Aggregor has been sighted near the planet's solid core. Ben and the team pursue Aggregor and reach the planet's center, learning that the second piece of the Map of Infinity is disguised as a gravitational device which is responsible for holding Piscis's liquid atmosphere together. Aggregor steals the piece of the map and flees, causing the planet to come apart. Ben transforms into goop and uses his anti-gravity device to replace the map piece, which stabilizes the planet's atmosphere. While Ben and his team are celebrated by the people of Piscis for saving their world, they lament that Aggregor has once again escaped from them. Ben, Gwen, and Kevin pursue Aggregor to a mystic doorway known as the Door to Anywhere, through which Aggregor escapes to an unknown realm. Believing she knows somebody who can help them follow Aggregor, Gwen finds Charmcaster, whom she convinces to aid them after revealing that the dimension Aggregor went to was virtually made of mana. Charmcaster explains that this dimension is Legerdemain, the realm of magic where Charmcaster herself was born. The group enter Legerdemain, where they are confronted by Adwaitia, a dark magician who rules Legerdemain through an artifact called the Alpha Rune. Charmcaster reveals that her father, Spellbinder, was killed in the process of helping Hex and Charmcaster escape from Adwaitia and Legerdemain. The team is able to navigate Legerdemain and reach Adwaitia, who is suddenly defeated by Aggregor, who steals the Alpha Rune, revealed to be a disguised piece of the Map of Infinity. Aggregor escapes and the team flees Legerdemain, but Charmcaster stays behind, intending to avenge her father. Charmcaster is stranded in Legerdemain, and Ben states that they only have one more chance to defeat Aggregor. Azimuth contacts Ben's team and teleports them to the location of the final piece of the map of infinity, a huge cube-shaped structure known as the Perplexahedron, located in another galaxy. The team pursues Aggregor to the interior of the Perplexahedron, discovering that it is an enormous, shifting maze designed by Professor Paradox to protect the final piece of the map from all who are unworthy. Ben eventually deduces a way to navigate the maze, and the trio are able to outmaneuver Aggregor and beat him to the center of the Perplexahedron. There, they meet the Sentinel, an alien who exists to protect the map piece. Ben retrieves the piece, causing the Perplexahedron to begin collapsing. While they try to flee, Ben decides to go back to save the Sentinel. In the process, Ben and Aggregor battle, and Aggregor steals the last piece. The Sentinel, lamenting that all is lost, vanishes in Ben's arms. Ben, resolving to honor him, declares that they will stop Aggregor. On Galvin Mark II, Azimuth chastises Ben, Gwen, and Kevin for their failure to stop Aggregor from acquiring the completed map of infinity. Ben decides to turn into Alien X, his most powerful alien form possessing virtual omnipotence, in the hopes of stopping Aggregor. However, Ben is unable to convince Alien X's split personalities to cooperate, and Professor Paradox ultimately reverts Ben to human form. Paradox explains that the Forge of Creation is the birthplace of celestial sapiens, the species of Alien X. Aggregor intends to absorb the powers from an infant member of their species, which will give him infinite power. Paradox teleports the team to the Forge of Creation, which is out of sync with time itself due to a chrono-randomization barrier. When Ben falls through the barrier, he accidentally summons a 10-year-old version of himself, who agrees to help them stop Aggregor. In the center of the Forge of Creation, the team battles Aggregor on the palm of a mother celestial sapien, but all of them are defeated. As a last resort, the 10-year-old Ben convinces Kevin to absorb the Ultimatrix's power, turning him into a monstrous amalgamation of Ben's aliens. Kevin easily defeats Aggregor, but loses his mind and flees. Paradox returns the young Ben to his timeline, while the old Ben resolves to find and rescue Kevin. Kevin attacks and steals the powers of the half-human Alan Albright, but is driven off by Ben before he can kill him. Alan reveals that Kevin has already stolen the powers of all of the other Plumber's helpers, as well as Ben's old foe, Dr. Victor. Ben, convinced that he must eliminate Kevin for the safety of the Earth, asks Gwen to help track Kevin with her powers. Gwen refuses and the two argue, which leads to them battling each other. Ben defeats Gwen with Way Big, claiming her sentimentality prevents her from having what it takes to deal with Kevin. Ben then indiscriminately seeks out other villains, attacking them mercilessly in search of Kevin's whereabouts. Gwen, meanwhile, locates their old enemy Michael Morningstar and asks for his help. Ben and Gwen separately consult Grandpa Max about how to deal with Kevin. While Max encourages Gwen to stay out of Ben's way if she's going to let her feelings get in the way, he admits to Ben that his decision to kill Kevin is unlike him, but he would have done the same thing if he was in his place.
But
it's not the Ben move.
Gwen and Michael meet with Ben, and Michael reveals that Kevin has developed an addiction to absorbing energy not unlike his own. He then states that the broken Dominus Librium has the capability of removing the powers that Kevin has stolen, returning him to his ordinary form. Ben agrees to help Gwen and Michael track down Kevin, but only so that he can kill Kevin himself. Gwen later confronts Kevin at the same New York City arcade where they first met, imploring him to let her help him. Kevin reveals that he has been trying to avoid Gwen to prevent himself from hurting her, but loses control and attacks her, beginning to absorb her powers. Gwen is able to escape from Kevin and flees with Ben and Michael. Michael reveals that this was all according to his plan, and now that Kevin has a taste of Gwen's power, he will continue to seek her out. Kevin arrives at Gwen's house, but is confronted by Grandpa Max, whom he easily defeats. Kevin then encounters his stepfather Harvey Hackett, who attempts to dissuade Kevin from hurting Gwen, mentioning that Kevin's mother would be heartbroken to see what he has become. Ben intervenes, however, and reveals that it was all a ploy by Gwen to make Kevin see the error in his actions. Kevin attacks Gwen and Ben intervenes, but is defeated. Julie appears with Ship and blasts Kevin, buying Gwen enough time to flee to Los Soledad, where Michael and Cooper Daniels are preparing the Dominus Librium. Kevin arrives, but Ben attacks him viciously as Ultimate Echo Echo, knocking him unconscious and preparing to kill him. However, Gwen convinces Ben to give them a chance to save Kevin. Dominus Librium absorbs Kevin's powers, restoring him to his normal form. Michael betrays the group and absorbs Kevin's powers, but Ben uses a device to remove the power and send it back to where it came from, restoring the Andromeda aliens to life. Kevin knocks out Michael, and he, Ben, and Gwen reconcile. The Forever Knights discover an ancient magic seal with their insignia and break it open, accidentally unleashing a mysterious demon creature which kidnaps some of them and flees. Tracking a disturbance in the mana field, Gwen, Ben, and Kevin reach the site of the seal and agree to aid the Forever Knights in finding the creature. They find the creature in the city, where it uses its tentacles to momentarily seize control of Gwen's mind, then escapes. Gwen, who is connected to the creature, reveals that it calls itself Lucubra, and it originated from another dimension. Winston, a Forever Knight squire, reveals that the first knight, the founder of the Forever Knights, captured the Lucubra in the seal centuries ago. Ben's team follows the Lucubra to a warehouse, but Gwen falls under its influence again, prompting Ben and Kevin to tell her to sit out the fight. They attack the Lucubra along with the Forever Knights, and Gwen is ultimately able to send it back to its dimension. The knight and the team part ways, but as they leave, Winston is revealed to still be under the Lucubra's influence. Meanwhile, at a retirement home, a mysterious man senses that the seal has been broken. In an alternate future, a different version of Ben 10,000 defeats Eon and seemingly destroys him using Clockwork's powers. However, Professor Paradox appears and reveals that Eon was merely sent back in time 20 years. In the present day, Ben, Gwen, and Kevin arrive at a museum to investigate a signal that the Ultimatrix received. They find a mysterious artifact and are attacked by ninja-like assailants who emerge from it. They defeat the ninjas, but before they can unmask them, the ninjas vanish. Gwen performs a spell on the artifact and sees into another reality, where Ben, Gwen, and Grandpa Max are confronting Eon. Paradox and Ben 10,000 then appear, explaining that the artifact is the Hand of Armageddon, a gateway that leads to different parallel universes. After being defeated by the Ben from Race Against Time, Eon began traveling between worlds, killing every version of Ben Tennyson he could find. The group resolves to destroy the Hand of Armageddon before Eon can enter their world. However, as the two Bens begin to destroy the device, Paradox realizes that Eon is instead using their powers to open a cross-time breach. Eon emerges and is revealed to be another alternate Ben Tennyson, who has been absorbing other Bens and making them his slaves. He intends to gain enough power to replace the timeline with one where only he exists. However, Ben is able to destroy the Hand of Armageddon, seemingly destroying Eon. Ben 10,000 then returns to his timeline, while Paradox ominously warns Ben about Old George from the retirement home. The mysterious old man from the retirement home approaches Area 51 and breaks in, causing the entire facility to disappear. Ben and the team are summoned by Cooper Daniels to investigate, where they meet Colonel Rosam and discover a layer of metal at the bottom of the crater that doesn't originate from Earth. Rosam reluctantly reveals that beneath the metal is a holding facility containing hundreds of aliens who have been illegally detained by the Air Force over the course of 50 years after being deemed a threat to national security. The group discovers that one of the prisoners, number 775, has escaped and fled in a stolen plumber ship. Ben, Gwen, and Kevin confront prisoner 775, who reveals that he was captured unjustly by the Air Force, and while imprisoned, his family members were killed on his home planet. Believing he has nothing left to live for, prisoner 775 resolves to kill Colonel Rosam in revenge, and travels to Patrick Air Force Base in Florida where Rosam lives. Ben and the team intervene, and Ben uses Ultimate Wildmutt to defeat 775. 775 is arrested by the plumbers, while Max chastises Rosm for unjustly capturing the aliens. Rosm justifies it as protecting the safety of the United States. At a meeting of Forever Knight leaders of different factions, the old man from the retirement home reveals himself as George, the first knight and the founder of their order. The Forever Knight faction swear allegiance to George, with Driscoll serving as his right-hand man. George orders a purge of all aliens on Earth, and the Forever Knights kill or drive off more than 500 aliens, including Pierce Wheels. Investigating the purge, Ben and the team meet Mr. Bauman at his alien food shop, determining that the Forever Knights have targeted it. The Knights attack a group of aliens during a food supply run, and Ben and the team intervene, but the Forever Knights defeat and capture them. Driscoll then threatens to kill the aliens, but Ben challenges him to a duel. Ben defeats him, but Driscoll threatens to kill the aliens if Ben and his allies don't back off. Instead, Ben threatens to hunt down and annihilate the Forever Knights if they harm any of the aliens. Driscoll reluctantly withdraws, but George forgives him, saying honor means nothing against alien abominations, and asks Driscoll to prepare for the Battle of 100 Lifetimes. Julie invites Ben and Kevin to visit the headquarters of the Flamekeeper's Circle, a cult she has recently joined. Their leader, Conduit Edwards, reveals that they believe historical human achievements were made with the aid of a benevolent alien named Diagon. While Julie is enthusiastic about the Circle's charitable aims and efforts to advance technology to aid the less fortunate, Ben laughs at their superstitious worldview, resulting in a confrontation with Julie. Suspicious of the Circle, Ben sneaks into their building at night and discovers to his shock that they are holding Vilgax within. Vilgax explains that he survived their previous confrontation and was mistaken by the Circle for Diagon due to their resemblance. The Circle and Edwards confront Ben, with Julie intervening. Ben reveals the truth about Vilgax, and Julie turns against Edwards. Gwen and Kevin arrive, and the four of them are driven out by Edwards. Ben resolves to soon return and defeat Vilgax for good. During a battle, Ben transforms into Ultimate Humongosaur and suddenly declares that he is not Ben, attacking Gwen and Kevin. The two subdue him and consult a psychologist about his behavior, who deduces that he is suffering from some kind of split personality disorder. Ben screams and vanishes in a flash of light, leaving only the deactivated Ultimatrix, which Gwen realizes Ben is trapped inside of. Gwen and Kevin are divided on how to rescue him. Gwen uses an astral projection to enter the Ultimatrix, while Kevin travels to Galvan Prime to seek the aid of Azimuth. Kevin reaches Galvan Prime and battles a galvanic mechamorph security system, yelling at Azimuth that Ben is a hero and his best friend. Azimuth, moved by Kevin's growth and maturity, agrees to help him. Inside of the Ultimatrix, Ben encounters his ultimate forms, which claim that they possess their own lives and minds, and wish to kill Ben in order to free themselves from him. Gwen arrives and saves Ben from the Ultimates, and the two pursue them to a fiery pit, which the Ultimates demand Ben jump into in order to liberate them. Gwen threatens to destroy the Ultimates, but Ben tells her to stand down, and realizes he must sacrifice himself so that the Ultimates may live. Ben kisses Gwen and hurls himself into the fire. He regains consciousness outside of the Omnitrix, where Azimuth, Kevin, Gwen, and the Ultimates await. Azimuth reveals that he has repaired the glitch that granted the Ultimates erroneous sentience, and says that the Ultimatrix recognized Ben's sacrifice and freed both him and the Ultimates. Azimuth agrees to take the Ultimates to a planet where they can live in peace, and Kevin offers to buy food for his best girl and his best friend. Ben, Gwen, Kevin, and a squadron of plumbers confront the Flamekeeper's Circle, who are transporting Vilgax via truck. The plumbers are defeated by the Esoterica, the soldiers of the Circle, and Conduit Edwards escapes with Vilgax. Ben and his team unmask one of the captured Esoterica, who is revealed to be Winston, the Forever Knight squire who was controlled by the Lucubra. Ben and the others confront Driscoll. They deduce that Diagon is real and exists in the other dimension where the Lucubra was from, and can now control anyone the Lucubra controlled at will. Diagon possesses Gwen and reveals that Vilgax is seeking his heart, which George cut out of him centuries ago, which will grant Vilgax limitless power. Driscoll reveals that hundreds of years ago, George fought Diagon and sealed him away, the origin of the myth of St. George and the Dragon. George is still alive in the present day, possessing immortality, and has left the Forever Knights in order to retrieve his sword, which is buried in Diagon's heart. Gwen deduces where the sword is located, and Driscoll betrays them, then takes Winston and the other knights to the sword's location. At the location, a battle breaks out between the Forever Knights and the Esoterica, and Vilgax absorbs the power from George's sword and Diagon's heart. Diagon, possessing Winston, convinces Vilgax to break the seal. When Vilgax attacks the seal, Diagon absorbs him into his dimension, leaving the sword behind. George picks up the sword, and his youth is instantly restored. George is suddenly confronted by Azimuth, who reveals that he built his sword Ascalon. George leaves for Area 51, which he relocated and converted into a Forever Knight fortress, declaring that he will stop the Diagon. Azimuth then uses a simulation to tell Ben, Gwen, and Kevin the origins of Ascalon. Centuries ago, Azimuth and his lover Zenith lived on Primus, where Azimuth was seeking to understand the fundamental forces of the universe. Azimuth ultimately developed Ascalon to manipulate reality itself, but Zenith left him out of disagreement with his irresponsible behavior. Later, an Incursian stole Ascalon seeking to use it for battle, but instead accidentally destroyed his entire home planet. Azimuth retrieved Ascalon and swore to devote himself to peace. He then gave the sword to George in the year 1131 for him to use to defeat Diagon. Azimuth then admits that he developed the Omnitrix not only for the purpose of galactic peace and empathy, but also in the hopes that Zenith would notice. Ben, Gwen, and Kevin are attacked by a group of Esoterica at Kevin's garage but defeat them. Determining that George has had enough time to stop Diagon, the trio investigates the headquarters of the Flamekeeper's Circle, finding that they have all left to free Diagon from the seal. At the location of the seal, they find the Circle and the Forever Knights locked in an enormous battle. When they land, both the Esoterica and the Knights turn against them. Meanwhile, George and Winston enter the cave where the seal is located, but are attacked by Conduit Edwards, who fires an energy bolt at George. Winston takes the hit and dies, and George kills Edwards. At the seal, Diagon unleashes his Herald upon George, revealed to be Vilgax, who has been infused with a Lucubra and become Diagon's servant. Just as Ben arrives, Vilgax breaks open the seal, revealing a tunnel leading to Diagon's dimension, though Diagon himself is still trapped in the seal. Ben and the team continue to fight Vilgax, but he damages the seal enough for Diagon to send out an energy wave that converts everyone on Earth, apart from the shielded Ben, Gwen, Kevin, and George, as well as Julie and Ship, into mind-controlled Esoterica slaves. As Gwen and Kevin rush off to find a spell to contain Diagon, Ben and George battle Vilgax within Diagon's dimension, who continues his attempts to break Diagon's seal. At Gwen's house, Gwen and Kevin are assaulted by hordes of Esoterica until Diagon seizes control of Gwen's mind, bringing her back to the seal with Kevin in pursuit. At the cave, Diagon orders Gwen to use her powers to destroy the seal, but Kevin breaks Diagon's hold on her by melding a metallic cap around her head that blocks out Diagon's mind control. Ben asserts that Vilgax isn't truly Diagon's servant and is only seeking to further his own gain. This is proven when Siphon arrives in a spaceship on Vilgax's orders. The group prepares for another battle, but at that moment, the seal suddenly shakes and collapses, though Diagon does not appear. Suddenly, Diagon's booming voice echoes through the cave saying, "I am everywhere." Looking through the hole in the cave, the group is horrified to see that Diagon has finally arrived, in the form of a gargantuan monster spanning the entire sky. Ben transforms into Ultimate Way Big and attacks Diagon, but is defeated and nearly killed by Diagon's nigh omnipotent power. Subsequently, Diagon electrocutes and disintegrates George with lightning, declaring himself victorious over his greatest foe. Vilgax suddenly appears and taunts Diagon into firing a laser at him, which Siphon absorbs into the machine that Vilgax used to steal the powers of other heroes. Because Diagon's substance is power, his entire body is absorbed into the machine, which Vilgax orders Siphon to fire at him in order to grant him Diagon's power. Vilgax gains the full power of Diagon, attacking and seemingly destroying Ben, Gwen, and Kevin. Moments later, Vilgax returns and attacks them, knocking out Kevin and Gwen. Ben takes Ascalon and wields its power, defeats Vilgax, and absorbing Diagon's power from him. Ben is tempted by the virtually limitless power he now possesses, and on Vilgax's suggestion, contemplates wiping out all evil in the galaxy. However, Gwen, Kevin, and a recently arrived Julie dissuade him. Ben gives up the power, instead choosing to revert the esoterica on Earth back into humans. Julie kisses Ben, and Asmuth arrives to reclaim Ascalon. Asmuth then destroys the Ultimatrix and gives Ben a new Omnitrix, asking him to keep doing the right thing. With that ends the Ultimate Alien series of Ben 10. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for the next adventure.